Welcome to the Wise Women Podcast and our debut season, Wisdom's Discovery, Finding Your Center at the Edge. Because some moments in life call us to our edge and then beckon us to expand beyond it. In this season, we dive into the shared experiences of 20 remarkable women. And through honest conversation, we explore together the moments that shape us, stretch us, undo us, and ultimately return us to ourselves. I'm Catherine Jelinek, and this is the Wise Women Podcast. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to introduce you to Sonya Jury. She is a certified EOS implementer and here with a really great story that I was enjoying listening to before we hit record, probably a little too long in the best way. So I'm really excited to bring you into it. So Sonya, where does your story begin?
Catherine, thanks. It's really a pleasure to be here. So my story begins, I was trained as an architect. And so I worked with a lot of clients and people and businesses and stuff like that. And my story fast forwards to 2006 when I was working on a rebuild for a casino resort property in Biloxi, Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina went through and devastated that area in our country. And I was on the ground 13 days after the hurricane went through, and we were just trying to gear up. I mean, it was a 1,700 room property. It was completely wiped out. We needed architects, engineers, contractors, you name it, and workers. We needed workers where so many people had left. And so I was the design project manager for the company I was working with. And every day it was, your hair was on fire. I mean, literally, you were just going from meeting to meeting to meeting or situation to situation. And there was a lot. And I guess my cortisol level was up. I guess that's a good way to say it. And we had started having weekly meetings with the leadership team of the architectural firm that the company had hired. And I was their liaison to said architectural company. And one of our meetings I had to miss, and it was back when we had WebEx, way, way back. And I re-listened to the audio that the architectural leaders had talking about our rebuild and talking about the project and the high level issues and, needing more staff, so on and so forth. My contact, he made a comment that Sonya's not going to be on the call. It might be a good thing. And she is completely overwhelmed. And every time she comes into a meeting, it's kind of coming in hot and wide-eyed and a little bit crazy. And of course, I can laugh about it now. But when I heard that at that moment, I thought, how dare you? That's not right. That's not fair. That's not nice or kind or whatever. And then I sat and I thought, I'm like, he is right. I'm not showing up. I'm not being a good leader. And I'm not showing up fully present and calm and confident for what I need to be doing for them. I wasn't thinking about the context of everyone, if that makes sense. Whether, whether they were still living in Biloxi or they were in Houston or Atlanta, because a lot of those major metropolitan areas ended up sending people. It was easy to get Atlanta to Biloxi and Houston to Biloxi. So we, had to pull workforce from that area, heck, all over the country. But it just made me realize how important context is for collaboration. And as a leader, how I need to be showing up, calm, present, not judgmental, understanding the context of everything that's going on. Kind of like a court jester when you're spinning all the plates, you have to understand how those plates might fall and understand that context. And then, so that was kind of number one. And then fast forward to another company that I worked with, and it always drove me crazy. My direct report, my boss, If something happened in the organization, whoever got to him first, he would believe that person and not try and understand the context of the other side of the story.
Mm.
And it drove me crazy, but it made me realize how that is a prevalent thing that happens inside of organizations. It's whoever gets to the person first,
Yeah.
the authority figure first, they hear instead of, well, what about this? And trying to understand the situation. And so that really, I guess, started me on my thought process of context. And then, of course, fast forward to our world that we live in right now. And I wanted to start understanding more about the history of the United States. Again, not trying to get political, but I just really wanted to understand the thinking of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all of our founding fathers. So I've been reading a lot of that, educating myself with history. And then, oh my God, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. And then, of course, Ken Burns with his new documentary, The American Revolutionary War, that's
Mm.
out, which is again fascinating on so
Awesome.
many levels because it's all about context. And so that has just been something that I have really, really tried to not only educate myself with, but understand, think about the big picture, understand a human. As I'm an EOS implementer, that we have assessments that we suggest and nudge our clients to take. One of them is Colby, and there's so many that are out there. But the thing that I do love about assessments, they create awareness. And as I shared with you pre recording,
Mhm.
assessments create awareness. They're not meant to be used for judgment. And I think that's sometimes what happens with people because we like to think about you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong, that kind of thing. And if we really could just understand 10% of the other person's position, just 10%, then you have common ground to sit, debate, discuss, and solve. And if I think back on my career, but even my clients that have done the work, the leaders that have done the work to look inward, hold a mirror up to themselves, look at those assessments, look at how it formulates them when they show up for meetings. I'd love to share a story with one of my past clients. They were IDSing. We were issue solving, is a better way to put it. And I was laughing. I just started laughing. And the integrator looks at me and the ops person, they all looked at me and they're like, "Why are you laughing at me?" And I said, "Because your Colbys are at play." And I
Oh my
said,
gosh.
"Yeah." I'm like, "Roxanne, you are an 8 in Fact Finder. And Diane, you are a 3. Roxanne needs she needs facts. And Diane, throw her a bone. Give her facts." And once they realized that, Diane started giving her facts, and you could just see Roxanne's anxiety go
Oh my
down
goodness. How interesting.
because it was about context, because they weren't seeing each other, understanding how each other they showed up, and understanding what she needed for making a decision and how little facts that she needed for making decisions.
Yes. Okay. When you're sharing this, I'm also hearing empathy. And empathy not needing to mean I'm agreeing with the other person's perspective, but I'm taking a chance to immerse and understand where they're coming from. And
Abs-
understand before being understood. The whole old wisdom coming back around.
but it's true. And okay, talking about assessments, strength finders, individualization is one of my top 5. And again, looking back, I see people individually for who they are.
I
Now,
love that.
did I like it all the time? No, but I understood them. What I didn't have was the knowledge and the wisdom to understand how to take that knowledge and use it for good to improve our communication style and how we collaborate and how we create partnerships. And once again, that's one of my loves of EOS and continual learning. I see assessments as a positive and not as a negative, which some people, I don't want to take this. I don't want you to put me in a box. I'm not putting you in a box. I'm just trying to understand how you work, how you think, what your personality types are, so that it helps me to communicate and help you as a leader on your journey to be your best.
I want to just back up because you've told so many good stories that actually highlight the value of context in different ways.
Thanks.
So let's go back to your first one, because your first one is about hearing something not positive about yourself from others. And what you did was you backed up and understood. You kind of took the you out of it for a minute and understood the context of what was going on. Because as we all know, right, it's never really about us. It's all about each of us is just thinking about ourselves kind of thing, reflecting us to us. Anyways, you stepped back and took you out of it enough to be able to understand the greater field at play.
Right.
And then you were able to come back in more informed and shift.
Right. And another little piece of wisdom nugget.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that if you sat in a chair and you faced downward as a human, and when you cried, your tears dropped to the floor and wouldn't mess with your mascara.
Oh my gosh.
Because there are lots of tears during this year rebuild, because I would beat myself up. I would make up a story in my head. I would create a context that wasn't right. And I learned that. And so going back, again, when I heard it, it really hurt. I mean, I can still remember where I was the moment that I was listening and I heard it, and how I reacted, which wasn't kind or pleasant. Yet I went back and re-listened and I thought, that is how they view me. That is not good. I have to show up better. And that's when I started changing and morphing. And I tried to find as much. I'm a learner. I love absorbing. I'm a sponge. And oh God, do I even share this, or is it just too embarrassing?
Sounds like it's a good one. Get it out.
Okay, so again, 2006, Audible books were not kind of a thing unless it was on tape. And I was living in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was not my home. So I just had enough to survive, if that makes sense. And I would, at night, as I would have the hour drive back to Mobile, where I lived for a bit too, I started listening to the John Tesh radio. Okay. Which, again, I love Mel Robbins, but it's almost kind of like the precursor to her. And she's 100 times better. But there were things there. He had interviewed people. He had interviewed some psychologists and therapists and, self-help people and, like the Tim Ferrisses and on and so forth. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that's good. So I just tried to educate myself.
That's wonderful.
Wow.
Well, more and more context and background and understanding that you're bringing in.
Catherine, I'm really opening my kimono, as they say.
I love it. Good for you. That's the idea here.
Okay.
To do a quick review still on your stories and then bring us to like your wrap. When you talked about the organizational context and how the importance of actually the first story colors our perspective. And then the second story has to relate to that, right? And so that's a key thing. You talked about, personal context and taking yourself out of it, then organizational context. And then when you're talking about these fact-finding, all the assessments we can take, individual context in Roxanne needing her facts and just beginning to understand the needs and strengths and weaknesses that we all have and the web that we are when we're in a team, and how it's playing off one another. So what you're bringing here with these stories is the layers of context and the importance of understanding from these different perspectives of self, organization, smaller team. It's beautiful to kind of get to sit with all of the layers that you're seeing of understanding and context, and how much value comes from seeing all of them.
Exactly. And the other thing is it's having a common language that you speak not only with your significant other, but with your friends. One of the things that I love asking my teams is, how do you want to receive constructive feedback?
Mm.
And, because somebody will say, well, I want as we call it, the shit sandwich. I want the good, the bad, and the good. Okay. And all right, the others rip the Band-Aid off. And when people say rip the Band-Aid off, I dig in a little bit deeper. I ask questions and I say, what does that mean? Give me a sentence or a language that Frank can start to share with you, Susan. What does that mean? And then I will listen. And then I will say it back to them again in front of the whole team. Is that really the language you want? Because then when they hear it, no, that's not the language I want. You're right. I want the shit sandwich.
Oh
Okay. Okay, that's great. We've made a breakthrough so that all these individuals know how you want to receive feedback is tell me something good, tell me something positive, then give me the criticism, and then tell me something good. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just improving your communication with each other. And that's what is magical.
Hmm. That's the outcome of better context, right?
Yeah.
Is improved relatability, communication, and understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. So then in your words, like we can hear the fun edges that you've been led to and the different bumps and good places on this journey. So overall, like in summary, moral of the story, what wisdom has been gained? What is the discovery?
The discovery is each of us have our own baggage, right? And if we can look at people just take them for who they are, not judge them, not make up stories, work and seek to understand the context for what they're bringing to the table. And when they make a statement, instead of jumping to a conclusion, get curious and ask questions. I don't understand what you mean by that. I mean, I was in a session yesterday and I really felt myself asking a lot of clarifying questions and getting curious. I don't understand what that means. That's your language. Can you explain it so that we all understand a little bit simpler? And then, okay, now I get it. So ask questions, understand the full context of the situation. There's emotions. Heck, the person you could be speaking with, they are dealing with a sick child or a sick parent, or they themselves may have issues. Just understand the full context so that you can solve and communicate better, I guess, and work better and collaborate better.
The bridge building and unclogging of stuck places with humans. Yes.
Yes. That's great. Ooh, I like that.
All right.
Unclogging of stuck.
All right. Well, you're the one who's inspiring it. Thank you for this, Sonya, because I think it's that language and understanding of all the different places we need more context and being open to digging deeper into how other people, organizations, groups are thinking and how we got to where we're at. So I love the stories that you've highlighted, especially your first one. And
well, I appreciate
bringing that. Yes.
Thank you for asking me to be here. Super happy to participate. And I look forward to seeing the finished product. Is that
yes.
a statement?
Yes, it is. It is a fair statement. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we look forward to being with you next time. Thank you for listening to the Wise Women podcast. You can find the book, Wisdom's Discovery, Finding Your Center at the Edge, on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. And keep listening to the wisdom that your life is offering you.